I am back stateside from Europe with my man Tom LoBianco. How you doing there, Tom?
Oh, what's up, baby?
You know, I'm hanging in there. I've
Yeah.
been watching obviously a whole slew of the news today, watching as this marathon, big beautiful bill is continuing to um, go through the process. And I was just speaking with a buddy of mine, Rick Wilson
Oh,
from
yes,
Lincoln Project,
of course.
longtime friend. And we were going through this whole conversation about how inept the Democrats are
Hmm.
actually behaving.
Yeah.
You know that you can't win. You know that there's a slew of GOP lawmakers that are unhappy with the way that the bill is written. And by the way, you must expect that this bill was going to have a ton of issues because it's over 1,000 pages long. And when you have something that's
Yes.
over 1,000 pages long, there's going to be something that's going to
Yes.
piss off just about everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
And instead of Democrats reaching across the aisle, and I know people are going to find this, let's say, un-Michaelish, but this, what we need to do is take a play out of the Trump playbook called "Let's Make a Deal." A good negotiation is not one where I win and Tom, you lose, or you
Mm-hmm.
win, Tom, and I lose. One is where both of us leave the table, neither being ecstatic or disappointed. That's called a negotiation. And as it stands right now in this country, in our government, that's not what we're seeing. We are seeing a winner take all, right? Win win at all costs. And it's what I wrote about in my Substack this morning. This is not good policy. This is not good governance. What this is a clusterfuck.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't understand why the Democrats in Washington haven't picked this up yet. With the distinct exception of Sanders and AOC. Uh, I don't get what's going on. I don't understand why Schumer has not upped his game. I don't think. I mean, look, one of the reasons I love talking with you so much is because you have seen this up front, up close and personal. You know how he operates. Better than almost anyone. And I don't understand why the Democrats, after a decade of this, have not caught up to the game. All right,
No, they have not.
uh,
In fact, let me jump in for a quick second and say
yeah,
not only have they not caught on to the game, all right, they've actually fucked it up.
yeah,
Right? I mean,
yeah,
it's really what they've done. They've tried to change the rules. And look, I think AOC is a fireball. I think Bernie Sanders is a character. All right. Put those two aside because they do not represent the bulk of the party.
right.
All right. The party is fractured. What they need is one person.
Mm,
They need one person, doesn't matter who it is, to go in and to be able to communicate with the Democrats and bring them and the Republicans to the same table so that you're not going to end up walking out beating the shit out of the guy across the table. You're going to walk out figuring out how you did something good for your constituents and the country. That's what you need. There is no conversation anymore. And by the way, speaking of conversation, to all of you that are with us, all right, and we're dragging a little bit right now. I expect well in excess of 1,000 people immediate, all right, because I'm selfish. Make sure you keep hitting those hearts, all right, each and every one of you keep smashing, because I was told, and I don't know if it's true, but I was told that the more those hearts go out, the more that the Substack algorithm plays in, and that little square with the up arrow What that is that's to share with Tom and I. So please share this with your family, your friends, your neighbors, your postman. I don't give a shit. Share it because
Yeah.
this is important conversation. And the more people that hear it, the more people will go out and repeat it because this is our country's lifeline. We are the country's lifeline. It's not our elected officials. They work for us. And if we're not going to hold them accountable, if we're not going to scream bloody murder, who is? So again, keep smashing those hearts. Again, share it with that little square. Tom, you were saying.
Yeah. I love that. We are the leadership. We do. We lead by doing. That's how. And one of the things I've thought was so fascinating about this, and we've talked about this before. For a long time, a lot of the professional, political types in Washington on media, on the Acela corridor and whatnot, always kind of struggled with, well, what is Trump? It's not conservative, it's not liberal, like, there's no policy. What's going on here? And it took for a long time for a lot of folks, especially if you weren't like really inside a Trump world, to kind of grasp that had nothing to do with policy. It's just raw power. All right. It has nothing to do with policy. I'm starting to see that now a little bit with it's performative. Okay. And we've talked about this before. And guys, if you don't already, make sure you subscribe to 24 Site News. Pretty soon, I'm going to have a real nice, fancy sign back there. But till then, I'm bootstrapping it with the inkjet printer. All right. And so Zohran Mamdani, I thought was really interesting because people are going to try to put him in like, oh, socialist, Marxist, whatever, and it certainly he clearly is a democratic socialist. But the way he's going out there and engaging people, I was talking with Mike Madrid about this last week
Mhm.
about how he activated Latino voters, and he did it by showing up and by talking with people.
Right.
But doing what we're doing right here,
So
and
it's interesting that you say that, Tom, because when Kamala was still running, I remember reaching out to Jamie Harrison.
mm,
And I tried to reach out to some of the other Democratic leaders to explain to them what you're doing is wrong. Yeah, I know everybody's blowing smoke up each other's ass. Look how many people are showing up to her rallies. Look at the rah rah sis boom bah horse shit that's going on. No, you did not reach out to one single person outside of that group that was already voting for her. Let's not forget 75 plus million people voted for Kamala Harris.
yeah,
77 million voted for Trump. You needed to pick off 2 million people. They figured out how to pick off people from the Hispanic community, Latino community, the Black community, the brown community, even the LGBTQ plus community.
sure,
They picked off from everybody. They figured it out in small
yeah,
numbers and they won. They didn't just win. They beat the shit out of us in every single one of the 7 swing states. So you got to say, what was I constantly trying to put into Jamie Harrison's head? I wanted to explain to him guerrilla, grassroots organizing. That's what Mamdani did. All right.
yes,
He's not right for mayor. Let me be clear about that.
hmm
He's not the right guy. First of all, much of what he's talking about, and I'm not even talking about the anti Semitic tropes, I'm not even going to
yeah,
go there. All right. I'm talking about just real estate alone. The
mm,
problem with somebody like Zoran Mamdani, he doesn't understand real
mm,
estate. He just doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand New York City real estate. I do. I used to own buildings before
that's
before I
right,
got fucked up by Trump.
yeah,
All right. And then I lost them. All right. I had 7 buildings. 7. Now, I understand. I watched the commercial he put in on, it was like West 83rd Street. They're going after a guy who's known as one of the worst landlords in New York City and so on. And I happen to know who the guy is. I happen
mm,
to know the building. I'm not going to say I disagree with him. All right. And people should not be forced to live that way. So fine them. Do what you're supposed to
yeah,
do. But here's the thing. He's talking about taking the properties, having them repaired by the city, charging the landlords and fining them like double or triple amounts based upon the violation. Let me be very clear what's going to happen here. Okay? We've seen this happen many, many years ago, especially during the Great Depression. People will walk away from the buildings.
Yeah.
All right? And then who's going to own them and run them? The city? Let me be very clear, Mr. Mamdani. All right? Nobody runs a shittier product than the city of New York's housing. Okay? Nobody.
Yes.
Including the guy that you guys have all labeled the worst landlord in New York City.
Yeah.
Let me take you up to public housing. All right? Let me check. If I had unlimited wealth, I really truly mean it. If I had unlimited wealth, I would take all of those properties and slowly, one by one, I would redo them that these people should have a decent home to live in. I have been in those properties when I was a personal injury medical malpractice attorney going back in the early 90s from 91 through, well, it was really through 2000 when I was practicing. I used to sometimes go up to a client who's injured. I had one woman who was injured, broke her leg because she fell through the bathroom floor into her neighbor underneath. True, the whole floor collapsed. And when I turned around and I said to her, I don't understand. How did the floor collapse? The floor had already collapsed. There was a hole about 3 feet by 3 feet in the floor. What they did is they covered it with a piece of plyboard.
Jesus.
No. I'm dead serious here. All right? They covered it with a piece of plyboard. At any time, you could lift it up and watch your neighbor underneath taking a shit. That's how disgusting that was. People had, I don't say it to be funny. I say it because it made me very upset. Truly, I was angered and I was upset. These are the most vulnerable people.
Yeah.
All right? And we sued. It was the city housing. Going through suing the city is like you want to just you want to rip your hair out. If it wasn't that I so thankful that I still have hair on my head, I would have ripped it out a long time ago. It was disgusting. The city of New York is the fucking worst. All right, when it comes to this. So now you're going to turn around, you're going to turn over buildings to the city in order to manage it. Nothing the city does is actually good. I can show you if I took this telephone and the camera and showed you outside. They finish literally stripping the concrete in the streets and then they repave them. They do it once a year. Imagine once a year. They have to do it. You go down to Florida, you go to Texas, you go to other states, go to other countries. They don't do it every single year. Meanwhile, they finally, after 4, 5, 6 weeks, they finally finish all of the paving, all right, with the new asphalt. They don't even put down the lines yet. Imagine this. They don't even put the lines down, and some asshole's already there with a machine chopping off an orange square because either Con Edison or Verizon or AT somebody's got to get underground in order to fix something. So they're already chopping it up. So now you got chopped up things. You got metal plates and stuff all over the goddamn place. All right. You got now this bullshit local 11 law that costs every single building more than 7 figures every 5 years. The biggest fucking scam. So, Mr. Mamdani, let me be very fucking clear with you. You have no idea what you're talking about. You don't know what it's like to run a building. All right. You have zero clue. And I agree. Some people should not be allowed to be landlords. They should have to be licensed. And you could take away that license. Some people should not because they are fucking horrible human beings that don't care about anybody else. So I'm all for that. But what he's saying is absolutely 100% wrong. It's just wrong. And that's not, by the way, explain to me, and I'm going to you run with this one. So I'm Mamdani, and I'm telling you, you're the landlord. For a rent stabilized or a rent controlled apartment, you can't charge more than $971. All right?
Wow.
Okay, that's what it is. You got 20 units. You're basically looking at under $250,000 of gross income. All right? Under $250,000. Now, you say, okay, I guess it all depends on how much you're paying for the building, right?
Yeah.
All right. Hold on. We haven't even started yet. That's your gross. What about your expenses?
Mm.
Every year, because of mismanagement, fraud, waste, abuse, city increases real estate taxes. Goes up like 2-3% every single year. So what if hypothetically on that 20-unit building, let's say it's going to cost you now, when you first bought the building years ago, maybe it cost you 25-30,000. Now it's 200,000 for the real estate tax. All right, 140,000. Let's be fair, 140,000. So you basically have $100,000 left. What about repairs? What about management? It's 5% of the gross. What about water, sewer, electric? All right. What about your insurance on the building?
Yeah.
Every year that keeps going up and up and up, right? Violations. So now you're not you're not in the black, you're in the red on the
Yeah.
property. By the way, you haven't even paid the mortgage. You haven't even
Correct.
paid your mortgage. That assumes you own the building outright.
You give up the building. Yeah,
So
give up the building. Right.
wait.
Yeah. Toss it. Right.
And then what
You know.
happens to these people?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Back out on the streets. You know what? I went after Trump got elected again. All right. And I get, I'm here in suburban Washington. I'm talking with normies. All right. The other parents in suburban DC who are like, engaged, but also have lives that they're leading. And they're like, what are we like? What is this? All right. When he brings in the oligarchs, Bezos and, what's her name? The beach balls, the one that just got married. I'm sorry.
Oh,
That
you're talking
Zuckerberg
about
was out
Lauren
of the way.
Sanchez?
Yes, the one Zuckerberg couldn't peel his eyes off of, all right? And they're like, "Well, what is this?" And, it took me a second for this, and I was watching, Timothy Snyder, great, he's brilliant on this global, neo-authoritarianism that we're living through, and I feel like when you're talking about this, it's just jogging my memory. It reminds me so much of, like, Tammany Hall.
Hmm.
It's like, like when you have these people coming in, when you have Qatar giving a gift of a plane, all right? At the same time, working with Hamas and Iran, all right? And when you and they get people walking into the White House, it just feels like such like a New York operation. How would you like is Trump just wired that way? Like, has he
Well,
always been that
I'm
way?
not gonna. Look, I'm a lifelong New Yorker. To turn around to say, that all corruption starts and ends in New York. Let me be very clear.
We got some good
From
ones down here.
from Maine to Florida, all right, to Texas to California and up to Arizona, there is nothing but corruption in everywhere. But yes, I get your point. The problem is that they're they're running it for profit.
Mm,
And government employees aren't supposed to do that. When, of course, you run for a seat, you're supposed to be running for your constituents, for your community, for the country, not for yourself. And I'll tell you what we've learned, and this is not a Republican issue. This is a political issue. This is a U.S. government issue. When you have members of Congress who are legally allowed to insider trade, I got a real fucking problem with that. All right. They make $170,000 a year. That's their pay. Somehow, after 5 years of being in government, they're worth $10-15 million. You get somebody like Nancy Pelosi, who's worth well over 150 million, maybe 200 million. All right. I got a real problem with that because I know people who've gone to prison for insider trading, including somebody like Martha Stewart on a $10,000 deal. These folks sit on committees and they're able to invest in stock related to that committee. I got a real problem with that because clearly you're not there in order to benefit anyone other than yourself. And that's not a Republican issue. It's not a Democratic issue. It is a U.S. government issue.
Yeah. This kind of goes back to Democrats listening to people, engaging out there. I remember a couple years ago, if you looked at like TikTok, for instance, and not really so much here yet, but although I have to tell you, Substack has become one of the great platforms. Thank God. All right. Um, the audience was talking about insider trading and the gerontocracy. All right. And Democrats didn't want to do it. They didn't want to talk about it at all. All right. And look what ends up happening. All right. They flee. They go to RFK Jr. They'll go anywhere else. Marianne Williamson, they're looking for anything right now. And why? Because the party, I keep thinking back to 2016, the Republican Party went through its reckoning and Trump came out of it, right? The Democratic Party has not gone through its reckoning yet. It feels like this might be it. It certainly feels like it's finally
here. Could you
here.
imagine, Tom, if there was somebody there that could bring the parties together? Could you imagine if there would be just one person, just one? Instead, as I wrote in my Substack, what do you get? You get a bunch of politicians on both sides of the aisle. I will not make this a Republican issue. I will not make this a Democratic issue. I'm talking about us, a citizen issue. They stand behind their gilded podium. They show their anger, their disgust, their performative bullshit as they slam their hands down. This is authoritarianism. Donald Trump wants to be king. He wants to be a monarch. Yeah, I've said the same shit over and over again, but I'm not standing there as a senator or as a member of Congress. I'm just saying it as a guy who, was riling people up in order to get them to start to act and to understand that Project 2025 is a fucking disaster for all of us. But they stand there, they pound their fists, they show the performative anger and the vitriolic, rhetoric that comes out of it, yada, yada, yada. This is stupid at this point.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you could say whatever you want. Say whatever you want. Donald Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do. He has dismantled the legislature. He has dismantled the judiciary. He is winning. And you could say whatever you want. You can get mad at me and say whatever. The guy goes ahead. He has an issue with, I don't know, LGBTQ plus community. They have an issue with it. Why? Not Donald doesn't. Let me be very clear. I know him better than them all. He doesn't give a flying fuck who you sleep with. The truth. Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't care. His base does, so that makes him care. Is it me or is there a lag again? This fucking app. I don't understand it. Can't they get this shit down straight? There's a fucking lag and it pisses me off.
I love the Substack app. I finally figured out how to route this thing across, and we'll do it for our next one. Next time we do one of these, I finally figured out how to do it across YouTube and Twitter.
Really?
Right? Yeah, baby.
Well, after this show, I'm going to call you. You're going to explain to me.
Hell yeah.
So my point is, this isn't, again, Republicans or Democrats. This is the fact that you cannot get two sides to sit across each other anymore. And Trump, he did win. Trump won, and he is doing what he wants. The problem, though, is not everything that Trump is saying is bad. Not everything he's saying is wrong. I think they take it to the extreme. But at the end of the day, there has to be some give and take. The old Tip O'Neill days, the old
Yeah.
even Newt Gingrich days, where
Yeah.
Tom, you and I could call each other every nasty name in the book, and then we'll go out and grab a meal together,
Yes.
right? I'm
Yeah.
dead serious. And
Yeah.
then we'll go grab a meal together
That's
and
the
we'll go
way
fight
things
it out
stayed
again the
together.
next day.
Yeah. That was the glue that held us together. And it's, I think back to all this violence, and it's crazy to me that you would not have a sitting president of the United States show up for a funeral of a politician. All right, a top, and not just any like old backbencher. If Melissa Hortman is the Speaker of the State House of Representatives of Minnesota, all right, uh, it's just bonkers to me that that wouldn't happen. And I think I was reading, it might have been Charlie Sykes was talking about this, and I think one of the things that's so helpful about what we're doing here is that in journalism we call it the nut graph. All right, you're constantly reminding people. All
Yeah.
right, so whatever crazy thing is going on True Social, like he shits his pants and drops a load on the South Lawn or whatever. Like who cares? All right, this is the reminder. And what is so shocking but so important to remember is that violence is emanating from the president. All right, in the language. All right. That's a permission structure out there. And I'm starting to see, I mean, it's been happening for forever now, but I mean, it's filtering its way down to the States and where you see people, emulating it
Let
now.
me be very clear about something. This is the time that we, as a community, have to band together. The bigger we are, the louder we are, the stronger we are. And
Yeah.
it's why
Yeah.
I'm going to constantly, every morning at 8 a.m., I put out my Substack post. Once a day, I come on with somebody, whether it's, on a Monday, I'll on with you, Tom, and 4:40, I'm going to be on with Jim Acosta. Tomorrow, I do Don Lemon. Wednesday, Joe Walsh. Thursday, I do Lev Parnas and Malcolm Nance. Friday, the Jolly Good Ginger. Saturdays and Sundays, I'm going to start doing, only maybe for paid subscribers. Even though I really don't distinguish. I just keep it open for everybody, but the paid subscribers are asking for it. I want
Yeah.
to build. I
Yeah.
want to build this Substack as big as possible. In that way, I could put all of my groups together: YouTube, X, Threads, Blue Sky, all of them, and then take people like yourself, and then the others that I mentioned, and then people like Rick Wilson and Midas
Yeah.
Network, right, with their 5+ million people. And then if we combine it all, we're as big as anybody can be. And then from there, we even grow further, right? That's the whole purpose. So that come 2026, we leave nothing to chance and we literally ensure that what we need to happen happens. And Tom, let me just say thank you for joining me. Soon, Tom's going to be on my Mea Culpa podcast. So make sure that you guys all stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining Tom and I. Please make sure to subscribe to both Tom and myself.
By
Enjoy.
foresight news, friends.
There you go, my friends. Tom, I will speak to you, and I need a lesson on how to cross pollinate this.
That's right, baby. We're all IT professionals now.
Not me. Speak to you soon, my friend.
Go on. Thanks, baby.